and welcome to another episode of Creatives Chat. Hi, I'm Rusty.
I'm Peter.
And Peter, who have we got lined up on our show today?
I'm excited because we have a transformation facilitator, a conscious mystic, psychic, natural empath, and overall healer. Just so happens to be co-host of Live by Heart today, Wendy R. Wolf.
Wonderful. Let's bring her to the front room, and I'm going to step to the back to monitor it. I'll rejoin you guys later, possibly with some questions.
Ooh, okay. Let's
Here
get
we
it.
go.
So, Wendy, I'm incredibly excited for this chat today. Now, just for our listeners, what is a transformation facilitator in your eyes?
In my eyes, I help people change.
Yeah.
And I'll say to start, my body, my consciousness doesn't tend to enjoy change. I don't like it. I don't like to get into the shower, and I don't like to get out. I don't like to get in the bed. I don't like to get out. Right? It's not what my body enjoys. But we live in a world of change, and so it helps for me to align with that, and it helps me to be able to surf the waves of change where I want to go, instead of them crashing me into the shore, which I'm familiar with. Right? So there's that. And then there's also, like, where do I want to go? Like, if I'm a sailboat, am I going across the Sound over here to Victoria, or am I going to Port Angeles? Where am I going? And that informs what I do, even though sometimes there's things in the way. So those are the kinds of things I help people with on a broad brush picture. Whoever they are, we're doing that.
Yeah, that's excellent. And I guess one of the things that I really want to kind of jump into immediately with, just because we're living in such a high energy state time, that I feel like there's a lot of confusion and misinterpretation of just, everyone's own bodily experiences and the external world. How do you really find yourself able to stay grounded and heal yourself during this wild, tumultuous time?
Yeah. Well, I'm very fortunate. I've been doing what I call inner tools or soul tools for a long time. And it helps me, like, how I like to talk about them is, you know how people say, oh, just turn on a dime or just do it? Well, I'm not able to do that. And a lot of us aren't. Sometimes we're good over here and terrible over there.
Exactly.
So I teach inner ways to get below everyday consciousness, to be able to perceive and then shift in here in our souls, not just in our intellect, or not just in our emotions, but actually in our souls, and then let the changes come from there. And so I've been practicing it for a really long time. I've been practicing it. It's going to be 18 years soon. Actually, I was practicing it before that, but I've been practicing it full on since then. And thank God, because we are in such a wave right now.
Right. I think all healers are feeling it.
Yeah. And so, it's not like I'm perfect or I get it right all the time, but I have all these practices that I'm doing on the inside. And it's kind of like, I talk about it like spinning plates. Like, we get used to being a certain way, and then, okay, add something. And that's what I'm encouraging us to do. So I've been doing that. And so even though it's intense, I can stay semblance of grounded most of the time, and semblance of present here and now, etc.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that's the most important thing, is trying to give people the tools and resources to bring themselves back to that. I like to express it as almost that your pure self, before all the conditioning set in. So it's removing those veils and those layers of conditioning. And I guess one of the things that I'm always inspired to hear is, when did you really get your call and really know in your heart that you were on this path of transformation and healing others? Loaded questions.
Well, that's a multiple choice question. Like, I was always like crazy about God. It was I was just a weird kid in that, I was raised Catholic and all that, but that wasn't what I was interested in. But I just had this God love thing, and this what's this life about stuff, and how does it all work, and what's the right way to live, and early. And then I had a mystic vision when I was like a preteen, which really, really shifted me to, like, because I was always an empath and I always knew what was going on, but like that was just the word. I didn't know that was. I thought everybody did that. right? And I didn't know.
Right.
And then I was seeing Mary, and she was so real to me, and she was talking to me, and she, right. So that when I was doing it pre-confirmation in the Catholic Church. And so
Okay.
when
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
went to confirmation, and here comes the bishop in his regalia, waving
Mhm.
his arms. And I'm just like, there's no magic here. I know what magic is. I experienced it, and that's not it. And boy, like,
Ooh.
right. And it's just like, okay, so I love this God thing, but this church thing, not so much. And then
Ooh.
the intellect is like, well, this is all just stupid, right? Let's be agnostic. And I am naturally agnostic, by the way. Like,
Interesting.
I don't let my intellect is not enrolled in all this crap.
That's very interesting. I like that. I like that.
And it's wonderful because it frees me to have my soul experience.
Yes.
So anyway, I
Yes.
love God. I love serving people. It's just who I am. I love
Yeah.
love. I love joy. I love peace. Like I used to have, say, I had these rose-colored glasses, like when I was a young person. Oh, everybody's wonderful, and there might not be this God person, but love is so great. So like I've always been into it, and then I was called as a healer when I was like I turned 30. Turned 30, got with my partner, who I'm still with, and was called in a healer in about like a few days,
Oh
all
wow.
within a week of each other.
Wow. Just
So that's when
life
the
switch after switch.
adventure really happened,
Oh my
and it was
gosh.
great, and it was terrible because I immediately started breaking. Um, but yeah,
I
no,
love that.
it
It's
was
great
not
and
pretty.
terrible. That's a spiritual understanding right there. It's like, oh, it's both loving and truly painful. I love it.
Yes. And then when I went to psychic school, because I was called as a healer, I start breaking. I start helping people heal, take on all their shit. Like I'm an untrained empath, healing people. I'm like, I'm strong, I'm capable, just taking on beings. I'm taking on their energy. I'm taking
Oh
on, right?
yes.
They're like happy as clams. They're like, ooh, I feel so much better. And I'm like, whoa. And I'm just, whoa, whoa, whoa,
Drained
whoa,
and
until like I'm in bed all the time, sick with all the things I've healed.
yeah. Right?
Right? For years. And then I went to psychic school, and psychic healing, teaching. I took it off because I was just like, oh my God, this is working for
Yeah.
me to get my life back. And so that's the last time. It's just like I came from that, like about 15 years ago, being like, I am bringing it now because I have something to bring that really works, and I know it with my own body and my own life.
Mm.
So that's a really long answer. Thanks for listening.
No, but I think it's incredibly important because I think that there's a lot more empaths out there than they realize. And one of the most kind of like the first things you really have to learn as a healer, and from my experience as well, is you really have to learn to protect yourself and, really cleanse your own energy. And just so you don't take on everything. Cause I like how you put that. So you take on all their shit. You really do. And you don't realize it until it's already like expressing itself. And you're just like, wait, what
Yes.
is this? This isn't me. Oh, okay.
Yes.
And well, can you explain a little bit more on the psychic school? So what were some of the tools and things that you learned in that? Because I'm incredibly curious about that.
Well, I went to school for 4 years. I learned a lot and
Oh,
practiced a
wow.
lot. 4 years, yeah. And I have about 4 years of training in me, if anybody wants it. But the basics, the basics are start with just basic tools for can I be here now and allow myself to be safe, and my body comfortable enough so that my soul can open, like kind of like a lotus to the sun, sitting in the mud. And can I tune in so that say hello to my chakras and own them and heal them and clear them? Can I say hello
Mm,
to my allowing the energy of the earth to come up and nurture my body? Can I say hello to the energy of the cosmos to bring the spiritual deliciousness to me so I'm not homesick? And
mm.
heaven now.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Heaven now
Um,
and homesick. Ooh, I love that.
Yeah. And can I learn to allow things to come and go and consciously let them come and go and creatively create what I want and let go what I don't want? So that whole creation destruction is part of our right away beginner tools.
Yeah.
Um, And like it goes on and on and on. There's like tons of tools that build on that, about letting in, letting go, creating what we want, opening to our spiritual senses comfortably. Because the problem with empaths, and it happens with other people too, like for empaths, our sentience is too fucking big. You know, it's like, I don't need the radio that loud. I don't need to blow out my second chakra just to, right? I can have it down to, like, some of us who are really very powerful empaths, I'll have it open 1%. We could have it open, 5 at the most, right? And then we can, he's feeling like that. His body needs this, and I'm feeling like this. My body needs this. Good information. Let me go on my life, instead of being like,
right? Slap in the face.
Right? It's that easy. It literally is that easy. And some people can get it just like that. I just told them, some people get it. And I'm like, oh, I can turn it down. Like in the old days, we had this thing called a knob on the volume.
I love it. I remember the knobs. I was a knob kid. It's great.
That easy. So it just goes on and on there. So like basic tools, and then basic healing, how to be an energy healer safely and comfortably, ongoingly, and not get burned out in 3 minutes. And then years of psychic development that's safe and appropriate, and psychic healing. And then how do you freaking bring this to the world? How do you teach it? Which the answer is you be it. That's how you teach it. Yes. And then you say a lot of things. And how to help someone be that leader that we become. It's like become captain of our ship. Yeah. And then bring the leadership that we are to the world. Whether we have 1 follower or 0 followers or 1 billion followers, we're still leaders if we're leading on the energy level.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing too, where it's like, no, I love it. And it's one of those things too, where it's like the rising tide lifts all ships, where it doesn't matter the influence in terms of the external stuff and people. It's like, if you're really just focusing on your self-mastery and healing and unfoldment and just continuing that process, it's an infinite journey. And that's why I love having conversations with other, what you can call like transformation facilitators, because it's largely a lot of the work that I do as well. And I guess the one thing that I'm really kind of trying to dive in deep is, when you develop yourself to the point where you can protect yourself to heal others, what has been the most impactful, I guess you would say, switch for you to realize that, healing is that mutual process, where it's like, oh, I'm helping them heal, and it's kind of always that new expression of now that kind of gives me some new insights to heal myself. So it's when has that really kind of resonated within your heart?
So I hear two things here. I hear about like how heal yourself, you heal the world, heal them, we get healed.
Yeah.
That's one thing. And the other thing is, I've heard you say protection twice. So so those are two. So thank you for being such a great listener. I feel like really tended to. Thank you. It's so nice. So do you want me to talk about either of those things? Or?
Yeah, I guess we could probably start off with the protection first, and then kind of the healing yourself, because I think that's one of the most important things of healing, is being able to lock it down and cleanse yourself, so you don't take the chaos in and take the chaos and put the chaos out, I guess you would say.
Yeah, I think protection is a fine word for the overarching intention. That like, I'm not putting myself in harm's way to help someone else. If I'm going out as a lifeguard to save someone, I'm not going to drown with them.
Yeah, I love it. I totally get it. Yeah, no, I understand that, because their first reaction is just to tug you down with them. And when someone just like,
and so I've been a lifeguard trainer. Like, the most important thing to drill into somebody's head is, you matter. And these days they're doing great stuff with having extendables. They're doing much better. Like in my day, it was all about the cross chest carry, and and now they're just like, here's a tube. Oh, you're unconscious? Good. But protection from my perspective is to let go. Now we're going to get into the soup. Are you ready?
Oh yeah.
To let go of resistance.
Yes.
Right? Resistance is such a word lately, but on the energy level, from my perspective, is what we resist persists, and what we run from chases us.
Yeah.
So I know, like in the world, there's things we don't like, and we want to act toward what we want, but we want to act toward what we want, not
Mm.
resist what we don't want. And so the protections are about noticing. So I know in some circles, like it's normal to put up walls or mirrors or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't do any of that. I take away walls and mirrors. So walls
Yes.
just make like, and they just keep coming, and and the shit piles up, like, and that's not healing, right? And mirrors throws the crap they're throwing at me right back at them,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that's not healing. It might feel a little good in a zingy kind of way in the right consciousness, but that, as a healer, I'm like, the last thing I want them to feel is the hate they're throwing at me.
Yeah, exactly.
So
Exactly.
instead, I have pictures of, like, if I'm a rock in the stream, I'm a different density. I'm not heavier, but I'm lighter. But rock in the stream, their stuff just goes right by.
Yes. Yes. I love
And that's that.
it.
Is this my shit? No.
Exactly. It is what it is. And you're just experiencing it.
Yes, yes. And so another thing is that if I do stuff that does hit me, it's because I'm resisting. It's because I'm judging. It's
Mhm.
because I'm not accepting it in myself. So like
Yes.
so we have this other thing we call body of glass, and it's a misnomer because it's not body and it's not glass, but it's a soul practice of being as spirit. It's a soul
Yeah.
practice of being clear,
Yeah.
being like Buddha, clear.
Yeah. The stillness.
And the more I practice it, the more, like, the shit can come flying, and it's not on me,
Yeah.
and it goes right past,
Mm.
and then I can act in my own best interest. And so when I'm teaching this part, I talk about ascended masters and how because I love to work with ascended masters, and like they show up and they're like awesome. And any humans, we have hate and invalidation and crap. We're like pig pen, we're constant pig pen. Like, we have stuff that we don't like coming out of us all the
Yeah.
time, right?
Yeah.
And so we're just used to coming up to a human, and my stuff hits your stuff, and it goes back and forth. And this is what we call relationships, you know. Whereas
You
with
catch the BS. You catch the BS.
whereas with an ascended master, all of my crap just goes through,
Yeah.
and then they shine back like ta-da energy, whatever it is, and then I can resonate with that, and my consciousness shifts,
Mm.
right? And so as healers, it's wonderful for us to do that same thing and to be clear so
Yeah.
that their shit just goes, and have a higher vibration so that they match that.
Yeah.
And then the whole game changes. The whole dance is a whole new dance.
Yes.
Yes.
I love that because I
Yeah.
like to see that, or I guess I know it as the pure beingness of source, or the I am presence. And I
Yeah.
find that that's one powerful thing, is because I utilize that heavily in terms of all types of working with others, or really just interacting with everyone. It's always that really full remembrance of that meaning of namaste. It's like I bow to the divine within you. And when you have that understanding of it, it takes life to a whole nother level, and you become that rock in the stream where it's just life is always flowing, and it's never the same bit of water that, twice. It's always that new fresh experience. And I just love it because that's where I really find that deepest meaning to everything is grace, where it
Yeah.
just gives you that that goodness. You always have something to take away from it, and every experience just really itself begins to unfold deeper and deeper into this great mystery. So, I'm very curious because in your own healing process, what have been your pivotal, I guess you would say, almost moments? We can touch up on it. I know it came up in the green room with Rusty and myself, but these dark nights of the soul, these kind of, I like to call it, your Buddhahood, your little baby Buddha, where you're just getting those spiritual legs under your feet, learning how to walk again with this new recognition. So to touch back in that healing and uplifting the world through your own inner light, how has that really kind of progressed for yourself?
Mhm. I do believe that the whole becoming an agnostic was a really important spiritual step.
Mm.
It really was, because what I did is I'm letting go of the sky god. I'm letting go of this guy in the sky, the Zeus guy.
Yeah, the separation aspect, right?
Yeah, it's like, oh, I don't believe in the sky god anymore. Well, that's good, because it's not real.
Truth.
And so that, and then I learned, the science and the stuff. Like, it's awesome, and it's good to learn to trust ourselves and find truth for ourselves. That's also a very important spiritual step for young people.
Yeah.
And then I had come out of Catholicism, which has its good parts and its bad parts. And then I was agnostic for a long time. It seems, when we're young, it's like a long time. But then before my senior year of college, I'd met a bunch of people, and I experienced spirit. I experienced the divine. And they loved me, and they loved each other, and they loved God, and it was real. And I was like, oh, okay, this is real. I experienced in my soul, it's real. And I became a born again Christian. These people were like wonderful house church, and it was really lovely.
Yeah.
And in retrospect, what happened is, and I really enjoyed like this great honeymoon with the divine, and all this like wonderful energies and wonderful serendipities, and wonderful worship and wonderful friends. It was really great for a while.
Yeah.
Like 2 years. It was really great. And then, but to do that, I had to put my mind on the shelf.
Yeah.
I actively, purposely, consciously said, all right, God, I'm going to take my mind and put it on the shelf. I mean, I literally, because I see this as real. And then in the process, and then after like a couple of years, it was like, time to get your mind back.
Yeah.
and I was like,
tipping the scale back.
No.
Right.
And I went through what there's a big wave you might not be aware, but there's a big wave happening in Christianity called deconstruction.
Ooh.
Where that very thing is happening in
Interesting.
large numbers of people, where they're like, the Bible says this, not that, and what's this about this? So there's but it's academic. So for me, it was academic, but also spiritually. And I was able to, in the end, realize that I bought the package. Like, I had true spiritual experience, but I bought all this other crap that wasn't.
Yeah.
And like, I came to the point where I was like, I felt like I didn't have enough faith, but it was like, what it was is, with all respect, I did not have enough faith to believe stuff with my intellect. I didn't have these distinctions then with my intellect that were stupid to my intellect.
Yeah.
I didn't have that. And that's good, because I'm not supposed to. Right? Like, faith is holding on to what Spirit told me and holding on through the hard times.
It's that trust.
It's like, all right, Abraham, you're told you're going to have a kid, and it's very, very real. This happened. You're certain that happened. All right, now hold on. It's going to be a while. That's faith. I have a zillion amounts of that.
Yes. Yeah.
Right? From the direct experience, not from just dumb stuff that people thought up or wrote down or whatever, that I don't have any, that doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I've been talking for a long time. I could keep talking, but
go for it. I love it. It's necessary.
So I also was blessed with, delving into some other religions. And I remember going to a Jewish, a different kind of Jewish worship, and noticing Jesus and noticing the Spirit, the whole, what I considered at the time Holy Spirit. I'm like, what are you doing here? It's like, where else would we be? And I eventually had this wonderful relationship with, I believe now it was a spirit guide, but it seemed like a different face of the divine for me to deal with. That was a big shift for me when I was 29 and a half. This different face of the divine came, and it was this beautiful female dancing on the waves. And she was with me for almost a decade, and it was amazing. And that was my big, you know how like these days we're having these big psychic awakenings. People are like,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
that was my big psychic awakening. I was going across the Delaware Memorial Bridge, which is quite a large bridge that goes from New Jersey to Pennsylvania,
Okay.
and all by myself. And I had this vision with this goddess, and she's dancing on the waves, and we're talking, and I'm like out of time. You know, I'm like in a vision. It's like the biggest vision I've had in my whole life, actually.
Wow.
Because I see all the time. You know, I deal with spiritual reality all the time, but this was like immersive. And got on the bridge, had like in a vision, who knows how long it was, then I'm getting off the bridge. It was the wildest thing. But what happened is my clairvoyance went pow, so open. Like I was seeing everything then. Like, and it's never, like that was the big shift now. Like I'm psychic from then on. Like I'm just seeing stuff all the time. And I couldn't control it, but it was like always there. If there was enough energy. And that's another thing I learned in psychic school, is to control that energy myself instead of needing a group or someone who's really powerfully spiritually to be nearby.
Yeah.
Because that's how it happened before, you know, and then I can control that to myself. But it was amazing that all this happened, but it was also really scary because spiritual reality is intense, just like physical reality is intense. And there's beings, and there's angels, and there's demons, and there's like, and I had no concepts, and I had no boundaries, and I had no,
that's a good one.
I had nothing. I was like at the mercy of all this. And that was really intense. But she was this feminine face of the divine. She coached me in some ways. She was having me turn down my clairaudience, which I'd been very dependent on since I was a Christian. I'd been talking to spirit a lot, and instead my clairvoyance opened, and I was getting trained to turn the clairaudience down so I could really hone the vision, and also started doing, it was called to start to art, and like that drawing on the right side of the brain stuff, and like just really developing the right side of my brain, and amazing stuff like that.
Ooh. Oh, I love it. Well, I guess it's one of the biggest things to really understand behind this for everyone listening is that each of us undergo our own spiritual development. And I think that's one of the most beautiful things, is that when we can exchange this type of information, you know, you're getting a piece of someone else's puzzle to help, you know, kind of put this whole great mystery into really your own understanding. And I want to really touch up on the right brain development, because I'm very curious about how you went about that and what that really means to you, so the listeners can get a little bit deeper understanding behind this this inner working.
Thanks. And I don't really know. Yes, I do. Like there's the actual brain that we actually develop to actually, you know, be able to enjoy music and art and all that stuff that is really rich for creativity. Like that is a whole different consciousness, and the beauty and deliciousness of that experience. That and then there's like the spiritual experience, and for me, like their spirit is all holding the same space with the physical. It is the spirit is the physical. It's just that it's easier to talk about when you say that, because we live in this world. So it happened for me in two big phases. One phase was that when I went to college, like I was all math and science. I was not good at my English and my history, and I made good grades, but I wasn't in the top classes. I was in the top classes of, you know, science and math, and logic was like obvious to me. And so I went to my first year of college, Rutgers College of Engineering, and I did great. And I liked it. You know, I liked that stuff. That's why I did it. But I got to the end, and first of all, I started to be just like, this is really great, but it's not answering my fundamental questions of like, what's this spiritual stuff, and how do I live? And also I had this concept, I don't know where I got it, was that in university we get it rounds us. we get a full education, not just training for a job.
Yeah.
And so I had to come out of the College of Engineering, and I just started just taking all kinds of things. And it was really hard. Like, part of the reason I went to where I did is because I didn't have to make a college essay. I mean, that's how much, right? And then, I mean, all these classes, I have to write all these papers, and I have to understand all this stuff. Like, I like formulas, and and the next thing you know, it's just like I learned a whole different way to think. And that has served me so well. There was one particular professor, I have to say, Bart Ehrman, who I live kind of near now. I live in North Carolina now, and he teaches not so far away. We both were in New Jersey at the time when he was a baby professor, and I was a baby college student. And he changed my life because he just kept nailing me on these certain ways because this was religion classes, this was Bible classes, this was, and it's just like, it got me out of the thinking, that kind of thinking. And so that was really important. But anyway, that whole process in college, and I started going into depression and started going into the dark night of the senses in college, which made it hard to function, which made it hard to get at, complete college. But
I relate to that.
But that whole process, like, my brain was different after college than before. Very different and more balanced. Because I was just kept working it in ways that were not comfortable and not easy. And then the other big shift was psychic school. And what I've done since, I'm just like, I've had almost 18 years of practice of using my brain in very specific ways that are completely not logical, like anti-logical. So I have really big muscle about that now. So it's been interesting because things that used to be normal and easy for me, like I took an accounting class. It was just like, I could have done that till the end of days. I could have, right? And now I'm just like, oh God, I don't want to do bookkeeping. I can, right? But it's just like, why?
Right?
Why would I invest my life? With all respect, if it's your calling, that's great, but it's not mine. So all this other practice, like, I cannot believe, like, I understand music now. When I was young, I was like, I can't hear the words, whatever, right? Like, if I couldn't understand the words, I wanted nothing to do with it because I didn't understand it. And now I'm just like, oh my God, do you hear how fun they're having? Do you hear this? I'm like, or art, I'm like, wow. And before I was just like, I don't understand it. Now I'm like, dude.
Yes.
Like, so I'm really different. And drawing on the right side of the brain does help that. I went to a course, that's like a community course about it, and I did it some. But the kinds of creativity that are visual arts and stuff, they aren't my thing. I can do them now, but they're not my thing. And what's really cool is just an aside, my creativity has gone like through the roof through all this. Just through the roof. Roof. And so, like, whatever I put in front of me, I can do. Like, I did a training with some people, and we went out to the woods for a while. We did a retreat to the woods, and we did all these different things that are connecting with nature and communicating with nature and participating in nature. And one of the things we did haikus. Nature, because nature haikus. Oh my gosh, I'm just like blowing them out. Like, oh my gosh, I remember in school I could do one. It took me like days.
Right.
So anyway, is that a good
No,
answer?
I love it. No, I think it's incredibly important because it flows into really the question that I want to tap into, and it's the flow of creativity. Because you touched on it earlier, where it's creativity is that twofold process of creative drive, creative action, and then destruction. And in terms of the kind of the dualities of that, what really is your source of creativity now?
When you say source, like, so the first thing I get is about being in the flow of energy.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the most important thing. Like, one needs, like, if we're not in flow and we don't have enough energy, there is no creativity.
Yeah.
So, allowing earth to flow and heaven to flow and my own system to flow, and there's other energies too, and allowing the flow up through me, down through my arms, out my hands. It's one of my practices about letting we call these the healing and creative channels, and we let it flow. And like, we all know that, the healing, you just tap into the healing, but it took me a few years of doing it all to realize these same exact channels this healing is creation. It's just a form of creation. It's a form of creativity. And so that just like, that changes everything. Oh, well, I can direct this not just to help move this obstacle or to help grow this thing or to help fruit come here or there, but also to let it flow as I'm writing, let it flow as I'm creating, because, and I've experienced it more like I learn when I see other people, when I help other people do it too. It's like, because I'm always learning. Every person I work with, I'm learning. And if I'm not, like, I'm doing it wrong.
Exactly. I love it.
So energy is the first answer. And then some people are like, oh, it's the second chakra, because second chakra is like body experience. It's emotions and sexuality and desire and creativity and aesthetics and experiencing sensuality and all that. Lovely. Yeah, it's very delicious part of creativity, but it's not the whole thing. It's just this wonderful, okay, we've got the second chakra. And then the throat chakra is, among other, it's communication, it's the stories we live in, but it's self-expression, right? So, okay, self-expression, because it's my creativity, right? If it's the tree's creativity, I'll look at the leaf. No, it's my creativity. So it comes out of me in a certain way. So, like, that's part of it. But also, and then my own hand chakras are the workshop, It's like, boom, boom, the healing, like, they have their own intelligence, and so do all the fingertips. There's all this intelligence here, so I don't know if you might have seen people heal, and we move because there's all this intelligence in these chakras along with here. So, and it's not just healing, it's creating. So anyway, so those are like big things that's obvious to talk about, but really every chakra, every part of my system, every experience I've ever had in this lifetime or where, or the past, they all are informing the creativity and the pattern matching of creation, because a lot of creativity is pattern matching. And the intellect is a great pattern matcher. So we engage that, and just we don't let it block. And so I mean, I can go on and on, but those are some basic things.
Well, I think that's incredibly important to really touch up upon, because it's when you start to understand these kind of deeper spiritual or esoteric practices, you start to really recognize all the tidbits that have been sprinkled throughout all the various religions, in terms of like the mudras, in terms of just your own application of, even just the praying and just how, and bowing, and all these things start to really, I guess you'd almost say, like, sync up into this oneness kind of practice, that flow and that expression. I'm right there with you. Like, I mean, I think Rusty can contest to that one, but for me, I'm Mr. One Take Peter, because I just the moment my mind and the intellect starts getting in the way, like, I've just very more so just letting everything express, because I like to really find my creativity stems a lot from my heart. And that's one of the reasons why, like, I always the intellect has to force myself to do something that if I don't have the love for it, I'm like, oh, I really don't want to do this. But it's the intellect helps me kind of recognize those patterns of, well, what's the resistance? How do you see this? And how is it really truly a loving expression for you to do this and not just resist? Because again, I love the saying, don't resist your resistance. Because it's that, just because I like to think of it almost like that channel of water, right? Where the moment you start to constrict it and resist and, feel like, oh, this isn't, you start to listen to the more the egoic mind, like, oh, I don't want this, I don't want to experience this, you hinder that flow. and it makes it either more intense than it needs to be, or you block it off so it can't even manifest.
Yeah.
And it's so important to really, again, for everyone just to understand, like, just relax. Just let, just let go. And it's that surrender to the moment called now that really
Yeah.
gives you that just that grace to dance through the dance.
Yeah.
No matter the tune.
Yes. And everything's right here.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Everything is right here. And I guess that's something to really, I guess you could say, how do you help people tap into that pure recognition that you are already everything that you're seeking?
Yeah. And just decide, like, it was one of my burning questions through a lot of my life. It's like, how do I help other people have this? Whether it's an experience of one, usually you could boil it down to oneness.
Yeah.
Or
Right.
consciousness, or like that delicious experience of divine union, or whatever you like. I wanted, like, how do I get other people to do this? And I was never able to do that. Like, some places do it like through music, and that's it works for people it works for.
Yeah.
So in my training, what I learned and what I've been practicing, some people aren't ready. Like, let me just say, there are some people that just aren't ready. They're just not in the soul development place to be experiencing those things. And there's nothing wrong. It's, if you're in third grade, learn multiplication tables. That's what you need. And if you're right, and if you're in seventh grade, you learn, right? So there's nothing wrong. But I have found a lot of people can access amazing amounts of stuff just by, when I lead a person or a group, there's two main things that we're doing. One is that I'm being it. And it's the most important thing. Be the change really is the thing. Because we are so, on a certain level, like, just like kids, we learn monkey see, monkey do. On a soul level, we will rise if rising is right in front of us.
Yeah.
And so some spiritual experiences I've had, like, have been so profound because I've experienced that. And it's like, wow. Like, I've experienced my energy doing a certain thing, even though I'm telling it to do something else. And it keeps doing this other thing that they're doing. And I'm just like, hey. So anyway, matching is the most important thing. And together with that, I'm always consciously working with ascended masters because they had bodies. Unlike angels, who, they're really great and high energy and wonderful, but it's not so comfortable to match them usually because I have a body and my body, like, doesn't resonate up there. Whereas ascended masters know how to show me what's right for me because they've done it. They've mastered it, which is why they're ascended masters.
Right.
So that's the most important thing. And then the second thing is these tools of, like, okay, we're going to do something that's not intellectual. It's not emotional. It's not body. You know how, like, when you can read all day long about swimming, but until you actually get your butt in the water and actually do it, it doesn't it doesn't have any meaning. It's like that. So, like, all right, so here we are, and you're going to tune within, and here we are, and you're going to practice this tool. And you're going to practice this tool, and and it puts them in a place where they're more comfortable and safe, and they're more present in here, and they're more here now, and they start to exercise their spiritual conscious creativity, and they get it. And then they get it. And then they'll have it. So, and then they can keep doing it on their own. Because they're like, oh, there's water here. What's this water thing I can swim in? Right? I'm used to air. But now I've tried water. I like water.
Yeah.
So just having that, as much as they can get that experience, then I can throw them pictures, or they can listen to videos or whatever, because they have the basic idea that they're acting as spirit in their soul, not in their little heads.
Yes, and that's the power as well of the healer or the instructor, is that when you, again, it's like touching back to what you just said, is that when you really open up yourself and when you really allow yourself to kind of I like to see it almost as when your beacon of light and your star just shines bright, it's going to start to just warm the skin and the hearts of those around you.
Yeah.
And it's that same power that we each have, again, to really be the change in this world, to completely transform it. And that's the kindness that it resonates on the deeper level of the heart. It resonates beyond the person. It gets right to the source.
Yes. Yes. And they might decide not to do it or whatever, but they had an experience and they can't unhave it.
Yeah.
They can't pretend that it's just all like what we can see and hear and knock on anymore, because they've
Yeah.
experienced, oh, wow, notice all the spaciousness or whatever.
Yeah, the emptiness, the stillness, the love, the just inexpressible peace and calm and lightness. And I think that's always something where when people get a true taste for it, it becomes that dominating yearning where they're like, oh, and again, because of the world we live in, a lot of people kind of see it like, oh, I want that feeling back. I want that one experience back. And that's its own cul-de-sac of stuff. But it's what it's when you start to recognize that it's like, oh, wow, like it never really came to me. It was resonating from me. And I think that's just such a fundamental shift that each of us has this opportunity to experience during these like high energy state times, that it's like, oh, all it takes is some willingness and life's going to open itself up for you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And it also happens with like the reaching for the next rung. Oh, I can't get it. Reaching for, right? Like I've been caught there so many times. It's like, oh my gosh, the next consciousness is so close, I can taste it. Right. But I'm not ready for it.
Yeah.
And so, right. And I just have to let go. And then it comes and sits on my damn shoulder.
Right. I love it. I love it because I like to see it as, you're kind of like running across the water on stepping stones, but the moment you look down, they're going to not show up anymore. So it's always like, just have that trust and that faith. And that's what I actually want to touch up on that with you, because I'm curious on your insights on this, where I see belief and faith as something entirely different, because I see belief as that almost assumption based, that, it's, you're kind of taking something on from someone else. And faith is that trust that's built upon your firsthand experience. And I feel like so many people ignore the experiences we have of the subtleties that always arise within us, where it's, the timelessness, especially right now. I mean, time is always flying by, even more so right now.
Yes.
Time's arbitrary. It's just a number as you see it, but you can experience it like wild. Exactly. Like this, we're in an incredibly like compressed time frame right now. And what's really encouraging for me is that, I mean, I don't want to call them normies, but it's like people who aren't on the spiritual path. That's not even on their radar. They're starting to recognize these things, and they're starting to open up. And I think that's the cool time we're in right now. It's a massive time for unfoldment. And I think that's, again, the importance of healers like yourself, is that you're going to be there to kind of help them through these more intense and tumultuous and paradoxical times.
Because we've been there before. We've been on the mountain. We've been up and down this part of the mountain, and they're just like, there's a mountain, and like, yeah, and they start to climb and they get stuck, and like that's part of what healing is to me. It's a fundamental part of healing, is I go where they are. I don't sit up here on the top and say, well, come on. Actually energetically go right where they are and show them, look, do. And they're like, look, do. Oh, and they're like, oh, do. Yeah. Okay. I'll see you next week. And that's it. Right? Like, it's just that easy.
Yeah.
Right? But I'm willing, I can, and I know, and I'm sure you do this too. Like, it's just like, oh yeah, this is like, I remember this part. It's a bear.
Don't touch that. Don't touch that. Don't go near that. Oh, I love
it's not so hard. Here, follow me, and we'll do it together. And do it together is very powerful too.
Well, that's just the coolest thing, that I like to see that we've traversed that path. That's why we can help teach people through it. And it's always being able to, I mean, I always see the signs of any great instructor, especially like I learned this in school with like some professors that were amazing and some professors that were just horrendous, and they've been doing it like 3 times as long, where it's this process of, you have to come down to the level of the student. And if you don't do that, then it's just that kind of arrogant, separative, kind of like ego-based superiority. And I guess it's always that humbling experience of, bringing it back and relating it back. Because again, it's like a reading poetry. Every time you read a poem, it's going to be interpreted differently. So you're like, oh, okay, take a little nugget away from that one.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, well, I really have one question for you, because I think this isn't so important, because I really do feel like a lot of people are going to be experiencing this soon, but those massive points of transformation, or like an old paradigm or matrix really just crumbling away through force, is kind of what I see as, that how you handle it on the negative aspect, or the more holding on aspect, is a dark night of the soul. And to you, how would you express to our listeners what a dark night of the soul is, and what would be your biggest piece of encouragement or insights to really help people through those times?
I think that in our culture, it's used for when like shit hits the fan. It's used for when we get stuck.
Midlife crisis, right? Or something.
Yeah, whatever, wherever we're stuck, people talk about the dark night of the soul, and that's great, because they're stuck, and stuck hurts, and stuck makes everything else in our life go like train cars just hitting, like it's not good. So, in general, what we unfortunately, what we tend to do in this society is like try to affirmation ourselves out of it.
Yeah.
Or like, let's take some drugs, or, let's just make it go away. And the incredible part is that where we trip is our treasure. I've been saying this for so long. Where we trip is our treasure. So dig. Because, actually paying, why am I stopped? Where am I stuck? What is the treasure for me? There is treasure. I promise there is.
Yes.
And that's why we tripped, because we can't go any further in our development as a human being until we, it's kind of like doing one of those like D&D games. I'm thinking, the computer games are like, right, you need this and this and this to get to the next level.
Yeah.
You just do.
Yeah.
And it's much more useful than the D&D stuff usually. I'm showing my age on that. But
it's popular more than ever nowadays too. Don't worry about that.
Oh, good. Yeah, but we did it in real life. We didn't have a computer game. But yeah, so there's that. But I'm a huge fan of I like the version. I love the version from Jim Marion, Putting on the Mind of Christ. But he built for a advanced Christian audience. He built on the other stuff from this guy whose name will come to me. But a lot of other people have built on it too. There's one for business about like how personally and culturally we're going through stages of development.
Yeah.
And the business one, it talks about like different colored things, and want to be teal organization. You might have heard that word. Yeah. So anyway, I'm a big fan of this, and so they've mapped out the human consciousness development, because these days we have the early childhood development that they didn't have before, and we have more in the middle mapped out, because we only knew from these great mystics of the ages, and they didn't start writing until they're way into their transition.
Yeah.
So we didn't know what came first for the everyday people, and now we do. And so there's two what are called, like in these kind of paradigms, the dark nights in the soul. And one is the dark night of the senses, in which we're going from like rational consciousness to soul consciousness.
Yeah.
And it's a big transition, and it's important to work out our stuff before we get here. Like, so the psychic consciousness is in the middle, and the subtle consciousness is in the middle. And then there's another, just in time, another dark night of the soul. This one's the big one. Until we get to Christ consciousness or God consciousness.
Yes.
Right? So like we're body focused, then we're like, ooh, there's all this spiritual stuff going on. Woo-hoo-hoo, but I'm still like identified as a person. And then after the dark night of the soul and coming out of it, which is no easy thing for most of us, by the way, then there's Christ consciousness, and
Yeah.
that falls away. But we can't be over here. Everybody wants to be, oh yeah, I'm God conscious. Oh, oneness. There's a lot of babble about it, but first, there's a lot of death on the way to life. So there's a lot of owning back the steps that we've skipped. And so
True.
another thing to say about this is that every transition of consciousness is hard.
Yeah.
When the kids are going to kindergarten, it's a hard step. And you might see regression. You might see, they've been fine, they've been potty trained for years, and all of a sudden they're wetting their pants, or like whatever. And that's okay. It's okay. And the same thing happens in our development. Like, oh, I'm taking this spiritual step, and now I'm da-da-da. And like my life is falling apart, and I can't handle it. That's because you're stepping up, and you cannot juggle all the things you've been juggling and step the step. So you step the step, and everything goes to hell. And then you pick it all up and do it from a different consciousness. And the problems that were problems there get resolved because, like Einstein said, the problems resolved in the new consciousness.
Yeah.
So the dark night of the soul is good.
Yes. It's a necessary step.
Okay, I'm going to pop in.
Let's
There we go.
Hey, buddy.
Hello. And so I've been taking some notes here, and I have some questions here. Unless, Peter, you have any more.
I just want to say before I pass the mic off is when we come in to recognize that everything, we're beings of habit. That's one of the coolest things about the human experience. And it's habits don't get destroyed. They simply get transformed. And, you can spin the wheel towards that loving expression, or you can spin the wheel towards that separate and negative or hurtful expression. And when you have that knowingness of your experience, and you really seek to make that truth, that oneness, that peace, that love and light from your own self be the path of least resistance, then life just really starts to open up. And I'm so grateful that we got a chance to finally talk.
I know, Peter. I'm so glad. And you're just an incredible listener for me, and so gracious and generous in your sharing and your listening. Thank you so much.
No, thank you. Because I love the questions back and the clarifications. Because again, it's that point of communication. We're each unique beings, and we all have that sprinkle of the divine behind our eyes, right? Or that sparkle, rather. And it's coming to really, I guess you would say, like, I say real recognizes real, because that's just how I talk. But it's one of those things where it's when you really let everything go and you just open up on that space of the heart, it's just such a mutual exchange and lesson and growth that's one of the reasons why I really love this show, is because it's Creatives Chat is all about opening people up to the inner light within each of us and allowing that to shine through our own, understanding of another. So yeah, Rusty, take it away.
Woo-hoo!
How do I finish? How do I wrap up with that? I mean, thank you everybody for watching Creatives Chat. It's been another phenomenal episode. Have a happy always.
And that concludes this episode of Creatives Chat. Thank you for watching. Join us every Thursday at 3:33 p.m. Pacific Daily Time as creative minds get together and chat about who knows what. View more episodes on our YouTube channel. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks again to our sponsors for making this show possible.